Hello everybody, Andrew Casey from Hypersanity Books. We'll be talking about 10 tips for writing perspective in fiction, including fourth person perspective. Though there are other subjects to touch on in this video, we'll just get into it. Number 10. Importance of point of view. The number one rule to always remember when it comes to point of view is to keep consistency with your story. Now, some examples that will come throughout this video, you might be writing a chapter in the third person perspective, opening a chapter, and then it will go into the first person perspective of the actual character themselves. Number 9. First person perspective. I pet the cat because I think it looks cute. You notice in the sentence the word I came up twice. The person is talking about themselves. That is the first person perspective. When you're reading certain books, like I mentioned in the Ghostbusters novelization, there was the first person perspective, which I'll touch on in this little bit of video. One thing with novelizations that I do like is comparing the internal dialogue to the film. Sometimes it adds more to the character. I like that type of structure in a book because you got a reference tool to go back to, and if you are familiar with a film that you do enjoy, that is a good way to learn little pieces on how to write internal dialogue. Number 8. Second person perspective. You pet the cat because you think it's cute. This is someone telling another person how they think, how they feel. Second person perspective is well and truly used for gaslighting when we talk about narcissism. Then second person perspective, usually in literature, it is a sign, it is something written, an affidavit, it can be a testament, something else that's in writing within the story. Italics are usually a good way to separate that type of signage or pamphlet or a sign to a building, etc. So there are different examples of second person perspective. One of the more common examples of second person perspective is choose your own adventure books, where the book is talking to the reader, but the book is asking, what are you going to do? Number 7. Third person limited. She pets the cat because she thinks it looks cute. Notice how the pronoun is she. That is one of the things to remember with this type of sentence structure. With third person limited perspective, the reader is following the character, not in first person but in third person perspective, to the limited information that's provided. Number 6. Third person omniscient perspective. She pets the cat because she thinks it looks cute. Little does she know this cat is actually hearing impaired. Notice how from the last suggestion the sentence had another sentence added. The omniscient perspective is an all-knowing perspective, or generally speaking enough information to that perspective. This is a very common type of writing, especially for early childhood books. Now, with some storytelling, you can open a chapter with this perspective and then take it into the third person limited perspective of the character. Number 5. Third person objective perspective. The narrator reports the events that take place without knowing the motivations or thoughts of any of the characters. Sometimes, and I've done this myself, I like to open a chapter this way with certain information to set the setting and then get into the story between the third person limited perspective. I love opening chapters this way. I do this in most of my writing. The third person objective perspective is one of my favorites to use. Number 4. Fourth person perspective. We pet the cat because we think it looks cute. There is another example of fourth person perspective, and yes, it comes from the Bible, but have a quick open mind to this. You hypocrites, first take the beam out of your own eye, and then you'll see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. One of the big misconceptions with that. So it's written in writing, it's the way that it's said, though even though he's saying you instead of we, It's a lecture. And this is one of the things with fourth person perspective that's very effective. And a lot of people don't understand fourth person perspective, and fourth person perspective is really hard for most professional authors to understand.
Jesus said, "Let the children come to me." And he laid his hands on their heads.
His face hurts. And where is his glasses? He can't see without his glasses.
The lecturer is speaking to the audience and to the reader. And that type of perspective at mass scale is what is effective with fourth person perspective and breaking the fourth wall. Number 3, alternating perspective. With stories, yes, you can write in the same chapter where it's going one sentence to another sentence in another character perspective, and it can be quite difficult. I read Pride and Prejudice, I have read some of Stephen King's work, and I do like how some people are a penser where they can write heaps, though I found in some of those books I've had to backtrack a lot to see where I'm at with the story, because you can lose your place between character to character, especially multiple characters. That's where I found it didn't work. One thing that I did do in Dark Sparrow the Mastermind, I want to also make this other point clear. The book is dedicated to my loving son, Lazarus Payne Casey. Yes, his middle name is Payne, P-A-I-N, and there's some misconceptions to that. With life, you will find challenges, and nothing is worthwhile with a bit of pain. So, you get the question, what does it take to get a six-pack? Some people want to know the quickest, simplest way. Well, sometimes in life it's just going to be hard, and you're going to face heaps of challenges, and it's the same with writing. So one thing I did do with this book, when it got to the third act, I wrote in most of the scene changes in that chapter. It started off in the third person objective perspective, and then it went to the first person perspective, and then some parts of chapters were in the third person limited perspective, depending on the situation at the time, because in the third act there were multiple characters, multiple locations, and there was a lot going on. So that was one thing that I felt like I did right with writing the book. So with some challenges that you will face, it won't be simple. Sometimes it's going to be really hard, which will bring me to my next point. Number 2, too many perspectives. One thing I want to say with world building, you can have something, as an example, The Simpsons, there are so many third parties, multiple characters. Now with Dark Sparrow, I made these mistakes, although there's a different way on how it works. So there was the world building in Dark Sparrow, there's characters, there's mystery, and then there's tertiary characters where you really don't have much perspective to it except for a little bit of something. Now I'm going to just say this as a quick spoiler within the book, but the ones that complained did not read the epilogue. When they read the epilogue and other people read the epilogue, they saw the bloody twist to the book and then said, oh gosh, I'm going to read the book a second time now to see the whole different context of this book. I felt like there was a part where, yes, it is distracting, so there were multiple names within the story, but they weren't significant characters. It's just part of the world building. There was a big twist to why there were so many characters there. So then when you read it the second time, you're seeing the story in a new context. That's something that The Good Place did with this particular twist.
Just now, as we were all fighting and yelling at each other and each one of us demanding we should go to the bad place, I thought to myself, man, this is torture. This is the bad place.
Oh, man. I can't believe you figured it out.
So, yeah, take it, leave it, made mistakes, learnt from it. Otherwise, within Dark Sparrow the Mastermind, there are lots of characters. There are other characters where you're trying to figure out how they're involved and what their motives are. But finally, and saying this in my rant one more time,
I think we're in the bad place.
Jason figured it out? Jason? This is a real low point.
Number 1, necessary third parties. Sometimes in stories, you will see so many third parties that are necessary to the plot and are necessary to the world building. Though how much perspective is necessary to get the point across, that really depends. With some information referencing to the Naruto series, when someone threw a punch and then 4 people give a point of view, and then someone else threw a kick, literally, in this fight, and then 4 more people gave their point of view about character development and everything else. Too much consuming of information. So there are different things that work well for writing and things that don't, but ultimately within all of these videos, they're just suggestions. Don't take anything to heart, don't take anything personally. There are do's and don'ts with writing, though ultimately, whether it's right or wrong, you just make choices and just enjoy writing. Otherwise, that's it for today. Sorry for the rant, but please hit like, subscribe, and comment. And keep the comments clean, please. And I will be posting more about perspectives, especially the 4th person perspective, but that's another video for another time. Thank you all.